Hello, I'm George from Pavliscak Studios, and I'll be making glass marbles today. I'll be making them using this propane oxygen torch, a variety of glass rods, furance, little rods that I've pulled into threads, and glass from this furnace, which is a crucible of melted clear glass. In this case, it's clear, not quite clear, it's transparent blue. So, let's get going. We've got everything running. So I've been working on this kind of stuff all day. Fire this up. Oh, I did move my oxygen for safety. Fire that up. Probably shouldn't say fire up an oxygen line. I'm going to turn on the valves and adjust the pressure before I light my torch. Let's say that instead. So you like the propane. And then,
like the propane.
hey Barb.
Hey!
Did you find all of Nico's winter gear?
I did.
I told my car I had a little bit farther than I used to.
Why, yes, you did, didn't you?
Well, I wanted to have a lot of space.
I can shove her into neutral and push her back a foot.
Right. So that's my camera right there for today.
Yes, I see that. Hello.
And that is Barb's cool project, making wood look like cloth. It's amazing. You can get it right up in that camera if you want. We just have all kinds of crap going on over here. Probably too much crap. Alright, so this is a stainless steel rod. I'm using just these little small ones because I end up doing some of my work over my torch here. And so this is kind of a halfway point. I can get into my furnace with this. With the aid of a glove which shields me from the heat. Normally when I'm working over the torch on marbles, I use a stainless steel putty rod, which is this size. It can go to a larger size even, which is, this is the next size up, so I can get a gather out of my crucible furnace without needing a glove. But it makes it very tiring to work over the torch. So I am going to go back to a more traditional glass blowing style, which I had in years past, but wasn't satisfied with or just didn't use enough to make it worthwhile, and it was, I'm going to build some better stuff. I have more patience, and just to show, this is a size comparison between, this is a full-size traditional blowpipe. It's hollow. That's where you put your mouth. This is where you get your gather. This is one that's brand new. I kept it because it looks nice. But anyway, these are great for doing marbles. Alright, so let's back away. Get this heating back up. Get to the hot glass part. So, I've been making mostly clear marbles with some sparkly stuff and some colored dots, and so we're going to do one of those first. And it's actually, I was thinking about doing planet marble, or space marble with planets. Let me get some planets out while we're waiting for that to heat up. And when I say planets, I'll show you. I make these very small marbles. And usually these become in jewelry or flat glass, which I compose as like a painting for space type stuff. Oil and gas. Anyway, let's just get out a couple of these. I need planet marbles, which are great for a space scene. Just in case we get them. And so I've got a pretty big selection of all those different kinds of things that I might want to add to a marble. Marinis, and little tiny lampwork items that are great for adding onto a marble or onto a fusing project. Alright, I'm talking too much. Let's make glass. Alright, so I won't be able to pick up any glass out of the furnace unless the tip of this is hot. So I keep that to be red hot, orange hot really, and I can get my initial gather. And while it's hot, I'm just going to shape it a little bit. So you can see there's glass on there. It's about half on the rod and half off. I'm going to push it off the rod a little bit more and make that gather on the end a little smaller. Smaller in diameter, but longer. And there we go. Now I'm going to put a little something on the first gather. In this case, it's going to be UV glass. So we can see that in the middle of the marble. And then just a few dots of color. Now, because I'm going to go and get a gather over this, I want this glass to be smooth. So I took those dots that I put on there and I melted them into the surface and I rolled them on a little plate. I have a steel one and a graphite plate that I roll the hot glass on. If I want to draw heat quickly, I can use this graphite plate. If I want to not lose as much heat as fast, I can use this steel plate. Alright, and so when this is the right temperature, which is now, I'm going to get another gather over top of that. There it is, all hot, gloopy. I'm going to shape it on a rubber plate. There it is. You can see little colored dots I put in there. It's a little bit too much on the end, so I'm going to take that off before I go and decorate the rest of this, the middle layer, the median layer. So I'm just going to heat the whole thing, because I don't want it to get too cold and start to crack as it solidifies like an ice cube. But I'm going to heat the end a little bit more. Then I'm going to clip off the end. What happens clipping off the end is I'm going to define, it's hard to do, not in my usual ink here. Alright, so I'm going to define the line first of where I'm going to cut it off. So it's perpendicular to the axis of rotation. And then I'm going to deepen that as I turn And then when it gets pretty small, it's getting cold and it wants to pop off. So I'm just going to pop it off over here, chill that. Oops. I thought it was ready to go. Oh, there we go. Now, I've messed up the shape a little bit, and the whole thing is actually getting cold. Even though this would burn the crap out of you right now, because it's still over 1,000 degrees. As far as working glass goes, that is too cold. I want it very hot, super hot. Glowing orange hot is the best. I want to be able to do all the manipulation I want in one go without having to wait in between if I can. But I don't want it to get out of control. And I don't want to burn the surface of the glass by trying to do too much heat too fast. So let's just reshape that. So I picked up something that caught on fire. Alright, so I reshaped that cylinder. Now I'm going to decorate the medium layer. So in this case, let's get some turquoise and some dots on it. Oh, you know what? I like sparkly stuff. Let's put on some blue sparkly aventurine. Let's do 2 stripes. I can do a narrow stripe by leaving this cylinder and just picking it up along the radius of the circumference of the cylinder. Or I could flatten a portion of the cylinder first, making it wider to pick up more of whatever I wanted to pick up, like a panel. In this case, I just want 2 narrow stripes, so I'm going to leave this a cylinder. And just grab some blue aventurine on either side. Let's melt that in. Keep the whole thing hot. Then I'll add some of this blue. So I'm just going to put some lines of dots on here. I'll do a solid line too if I want it, or several solid lines. Let's do that on the other side. So, solid line, we're going to want to touch the glass, roll it down, and then melt it off. Give it a line, just the dots. Let's do that again. One more line, roll it down the side, and then on the other side, we'll do a line of dots. Now, anytime you go to get another gather of glass over what you've initially done, if there's a bump, it's going to pick up air as you put the gather in and rotate it in, which is the basic way of getting a gather out of the furnace, to put the pipe in at an angle while you're rotating it and then rotate it back out. You can do other kinds of gathers. You can do twist it in and twist it back out. You can plunge it in, you can plunge and sweep. You can drag and plunge. There's really a lot of different ways, depending on how you want to case. There's different effects you can get. Most of the time, you want this cold enough so it's not going to move your design. You want the glass hot so it's going to leave the right amount of glass over the surface, and you twist it to make sure that you get an even line here and an even coverage over the whole thing that you're casing. Right, everyone knows that, but that's boring. Everyone can do it the one basic way. Let's do it the weird way. So rather than just smushing glass over this whole thing, I want all this design to be evenly at the surface from the poles to the equator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat up this cylinder, and I hope I'm in the right frame here, and I'm going to just compress a little bit and start rolling that cylinder into a ball. Still a little bumpy. Let me heat it back up. As always, I wish I could be showing you this the whole time and not having to reheat it, but the nature of glass is, 30 seconds of reheat, 5 seconds of playtime, basically. You get more time for something that's bigger because it has more heat. The more heat it has, the more it will retain for a longer period of time. Alright, so let's get that a little more sphere-like. I'm putting in a little line right at the edge where I'm going to cut it off later. And you see where I case that, there's going to be just a little ring of a bubble there that will show me where I'm going to clip that off later. Ooh, that looks cool already. This could be a marble right now. But let's make it bigger because everyone knows bigger is better. So let's do that. I'm going to plunge, gather this, and then as I pull it out, I'm going to let the glass on the end slump down towards over what I'm doing. So the whole clear gather that I got on that is almost evenly around the whole thing. And then you can see that little circle bubble around that area that I'm going to cut later. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a twist. So how do I grab on to the other side of this marble? Well, I'm going to get a stainless steel punty and heat the tip until it's hot, orange hot. I'm going to heat this marble back up. This would-be marble, this lump old glass, and I'm going to push that in. Now it's attached. See? Now I'm going to start giving that some twists by rotating with one hand and letting it sort of free cycle on the other hand, but just giving it a little bit of clutch action now and again to see where it grabs. I let it get a little bit off center as I was labbing, not paying 100% attention to my super hot piece of glass here. But I'm putting some, as we've been talking, I've been putting a little twist in it. I wonder if that will resolve. Let's give it a little bit more twist. And I just remembered the other marble that I want to show you guys tonight, and it's going to be a ribbon core, which is a kind of marble that I like to make when I have my furnace up. And this is, it's a favorite marble at the farmer's market because it looks really nice in the sunshine. And for people who are just learning about marbles and seeing them for the first time, it's really a nice introductory marble. You get colors in there and it's sparkly. And of course it's marble, so everyone loves marbles, unless there's something wrong with I'm sure there's another valid reason. Alright, so I put my twist in, so I detached that handle that I temporarily put on there to grab one side and twist that glass in between. And I was trying to keep the heat even, so I got the same amount of twist at the back as I did at the front. Now I need to heat the marble up, and I'm especially concerned with getting the heat at the end of the marble where it's going to pull down, all those spirals of color are going to pull down to a point, the pole of the marble. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to neaten that up by using my glass jacks. In this case, for the size that I like to use, are just barber scissors. And so what I'm going to do is, like I took some length off that initial cylinder when I was shortening it, because I had a little bit more glass on there than I wanted. I'm just necking this down, and then as I chill that little area that remains, I'm just going to pop it off. And since I'm here by the torch, I'm going to heat that end and then shape this whole portion of the marble semi-hemispherical as much as I can get there right now. Then I'm going to put a temporary stainless steel handle on that side, a punty rod. Then I'm going to detach this big one. But first things first, let's get this, the end, the unattached end, or the free end, hemispherical. Concentrating the heat on the free end, but I'm also spending some time heating up this giant stainless steel rod that's in the other end of the marble, because I need to get that out of there in the next couple minutes. And it's going to have to be pretty hot. So I'm not really, I'm sort of just not letting it get cold by reheating it. So I'm just going to gently go through, using my graphite marble molds, the hemispheres. I go through a hemisphere that's bigger than the marble and just sort of tweak it a little more spherical. And then I go to a smaller one where I'm using the rim and changing the angle of rotation a little bit. We got a pretty spherical, good enough to move on to our next handle on the other side. Actually, it's not. I'm going to go one more round because it looks bad. Well, it's not bad. It doesn't look as spherical as I would like. I don't know if you can see. Anyway, the whole thing's pretty cold, so let's take a few moments to get it back warmed up. And we'll shape it, improve the shape a little bit. A little more hemispherical on that free end. And we did a good job there. Thank you guys for your patience. Now I'm heating up my handle. So this handle has been on here before to add the twist. But I needed to remove it so that I could clean up the end to its final design. Now, I'm going to remove this handle, this big one. And then I can clean up the end of the marble that's attached there by doing the same thing I did before. I'll squeeze it down with the glass jacks, the scissors, and as I'm squeezing it, I'm going to give it a little twist too, so that I pull that design down to a point. I've detached the big handle. The end's kind of messy, so I'm going to get in there and clip that off. It's just a little bit too cool to do that right now, so let's heat that back up. All the heat I was putting in there was going into that big rod so that it would pull out of the glass. And some of the glass was hot. But I want to, when I'm necking this down, I want this whole end of the marble to pull a little bit as I'm doing this twist and pinch until I get down to like 1/16 of an inch of glass remaining. Then I'll move to some of the cooler portions of my jacks and then pop that off. Now I can improve the hemisphericalness of this side of the marble. And it is looking very marbly now. Very spherical overall, except for the area where I just detached that last stainless steel handle. The side of the marble that I have the handle on now is not perfect, but we will get there to improve it. You sort of work on one side and then you go to the other side. You work on one side, go to the other side. And in this case, while I'm manipulating the marble in between the two connection points of where I might have things attached to it, it's mostly about the marble's design and not about its final shape. So, but now I'm working on the marble's final shape. So I've got it a little more spherical. I have to get in there and improve the shape a little bit more. And I think one more reheat and one more pass from the graphite marble molds will have it mostly. After that, I'm going to reheat it, let the surface tension of the glass pull out the last ripples in the glass and the last imperfections in the sphere, and I'll just be turning it and let gravity and surface tension and heat do the final shaping of the marble. But for right now, it does need one more pass of the mold. I'm just lightly kissing it with that oversized hemisphere, and mostly keeping the weight of the marble off of it, off of the mold. Now, it's very spherical, but it is not smooth. So now we're going to get this free end of the marble as smooth as possible. We're going to heat it way up, and then start letting it cool while I'm rotating it. And then when it hits just the right temperature, I'm going to use my cherrywood marble paddles to chill the surface a little bit more and firm up the final shape of this side of the marble. I'm not really using those cherrywood marble molds to change the shape of the marble so much as I'm using it to solidify that shape into its final resting point. Shake a little bit of the water off there, and then I'm going to rotate this through my marble molds just a few seconds in each of those divots, and then I can use both sides of this to see. So now this side of the marble is complete. It is smooth, it is spherical. And so my last attachment point will be the glass rod. I'm going to heat up a glass rod, make sure the glass is clean on the end. I don't want any broken oxidized ends. And then make a pencil point out of it. Then I heat the marble to the right temperature and the glass rod to the right temperature, and then as they both become just how I want them, make a little cold joint. And now I can heat off my stainless steel handle. And as I'm heating this stainless steel handle end, I'm adding heat into this portion of the marble because I'm going to do my last reshape here. I'm just making sure no little metal particles from the attachment point are into the marble. And I don't, since my design comes to a point, I don't want to diffuse that. So I push that last little bit in with a graphite paddle. Heating it, just going to give it a little bit of a persuasion in the larger mold, and then give it some shaping in the smaller hemisphere, smaller than the diameter of the marble I'm working on. And that improved the sphericalness quite a bit. In fact, this one I think is ready. I'm going to heat it up and see if there's any little flat spots or any variations in the arc that I can see that wouldn't be corrected by the surface tension of the glass at this point. Very small imperfections, the surface tension can take and correct into the sphere as long as you keep it rotating and the glass is hot enough but not too hot. If anything is there's too much of an area where it's too out of sphere, it's not going to be able to correct. So you'll have to run it through the molds again. And so here I'm seeing it looks pretty nice. And if you're close, I'm going to let this cool down because I don't want the hot glass to grab my cherry wood because it's too hot when it fuses to the wood. So it has to be at the right temperature. So I'm just letting it cool down. I always shoot past temperature-wise. You shoot up too hot, and then as it comes down, that's when you act. So when you spin these, and it keeps spinning, it gives you a gauge of how spherical your marble is. And this one is not 100%, but it's darn good. So the marble is done. The whole surface is spherical and smooth. Now I just need to detach it. So I'm going to chill that last tiny connection point between the marble and the glass rod. I have a fireproof board here with divots that I've put in. A whole different size marbles. I chill that and tap that off. Tap anything loose from my torch. Blow any particles that might have come off the marble. And now I'm going to intensely heat that point where they were attached to each other. I want them to get very hot so that they start to pull smooth, but I don't want to burn the glass. So I sort of go back and forth. Very hot, very hot. Give it a little break. Let it rest. And you're just at a point where you're going to start to burn that glass and back off. And then I need to transfer that into the annealing oven. So I'm just going to heat up some of these tweezers that I've made. Got a bunch of different sizes of these depending on what size marble I'm going to grab. So I heat those up, I'll let them just go to black so that they won't shock the glass, but they won't stick to it. Just wiggle in there. And I can transfer this marble to the annealing oven. Oops, not that. Do this one today. Oh, this is a little bit hot, so just turn that off. That for just a second. You can see my high-tech venting system. Alright, so we're not going to do those planet ones. So we're going to do the ribbon core marble. So the ribbon core marble will be a gather that is flattened on it. That flat area will get decorated with a stripe, and then glass will go over top of that. Then it will get turned 90 degrees and spun. Yes. Let's do it. Lid. Okay. So I have this old one is just on a rheostat. It's not computer controlled or anything. So I have to be mindful of its temperature. Once you get it set for the day, usually it behaves, but the elements of the kiln will change over time. So you have to keep adjusting. All right, let's get some glass on here. So we preheated stainless steel rod and get the initial gather. The purpose of the initial gather is really so that you can get your real gather. This is more just like dressing for the handle that you're going to use to pick up your work that's coming next. If you're working small, this could actually be what you're working on. So if I'm pulling like little cans like this for earrings, I may start with a little piece like that in the center that I then start decorating. Especially if I only need, if I'm making like just a short pull. All right. But this one is just going to be for the purpose of getting the rest of our glass out of there, which is going to be 1/2 of the marble. All right, so we picked up some glass. Hot. Awesome looking. So rather than forming a cylinder for this one, I'm going to flatten that. Now I'm going to decorate that flat spot. This actually could stand to be a little bit bigger, but I think for our demonstration and 20 minutes remaining, this will be all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a center stripe out of white down the middle of this. So I'm going to heat up a glass rod, a white glass rod, and get a nice hot gather on the end of it. And then I'm just going to wipe the stripe down the middle. Now I'd like the colors on either side of this middle to go from dark to light. So I'm going to put some cobalt blue on either side of this white. So let's get just a little white down there. And I'll do one side. Do another one on the other side. That little string will stay attached, and you have to get it back in the flame to get it detached. Otherwise, it'll just stretch out forever. It's super annoying / fun. Like that. All right, so next color out, I'm going to do a little aqua. Heat up as much glass as you want to wipe down there. So there's the aqua next to the blue. And we're going to do the other side of that strip. And now on the outermost edge that's left, we got some pink glass. This may or may not show up as pink, maybe purple, since the background glass is a little on the blue side. Alright, so I got all my stripes on there now. Melt them in and press it flat, so that I can get another gather, the other half of the marble, over top of that. This is a bit smaller than I usually do these, so this might get crazy or end up in the bucket. We'll see. So I heated it and I pressed it on my marver plate. I'm going to do that again. Now I'm going to define the outside edge of this ribbon. So I'm going to go ahead and get in there with a solid blue draw a line around the outside edge. So turn this down. This is kind of a little rod holder, high tech. But I'm going to draw a line around this whole thing. A little bit crooked. Let's get our next gather. The other half of the marble is going to go over top of it, or just on this end. It's going to go over top of that little blue line over there. Let's see what it looks like. Alright, so there's the other half of the marble. Let's get it a little bit more spherical. Now I want to get this side a little more spherical, so I'm going to attach here and detach this big rod. So I'm going to preheat this, and I'm going to heat this strongly. This is hot, so I can get in here and grab that. Other free side of the marble. You don't have to grab it very deeply, because this is just needs to be on there for just a minute or two. now I'm heating the big rod that I gathered the glass off. So it's ready to come off. Okay. And that can go in the bucket. Now I'm just going to grab off any weird stuff that big handle left. And it's still kind of funky looking, but I'm going to heat this side of the marble and make it a little more spherical. And then we'll spin that ribbon core that we made in the center. And actually we'll get to see it as soon as I round this up a little bit. A little bit rounder. Alrighty. I'm really mushing this around, trying to get it to go spherical. One more time. There's one of those nubs that we cut off of the previous marble. And since the crucible I have going right now is basically all of my things that I didn't like that were of this brand of glass, those will just go right back in there tonight. Whenever you put scrap back in, it needs to sit at that temperature so that any colors or designs will homogenize with the rest of the glass. And there's also a little bit of salt, special kind of salt chemistry that goes in there to give the glass a little bit longer working. Alright, so now you can see there's the white stripe from the middle. Here it is on that side. And the color's going in. So now I'm going to attach here and twist that flat plane into a twisted looking ribbon. So what I want to do is I want to change my punkies off at 90 degrees. So let's get my first one attached. I'll start heating that old axis connection point off. Pull it out. And then I want to clean that area up. And let's get a little more even on its new axis by heating the whole thing up. And we're going to put it through the marble molds, just so that when we do start to spin it, it's going to spin in the way that we would like it to, not in the way that it would like it to. So it looks pretty symmetrical and straight. Let's get the other handle along that axis. That will be its new axis of rotation that we're going to put the twist into. Alright, so now we got both on there. We heat the middle of that marble and start twisting the ribbon. And I think that swipe, initial swipe of white is just too big, so this marble is going to be stupid looking. Alas, it'll just go in the demo shelf. Anyway, so. Alright, so marble's getting hot. This glass is feeling like it's going to start to move. So I'm going to start twisting it. Got one end is wanting to go rather than the middle. So I'm going to just keep adjusting the heat and trying to get most of it in the middle. Point up my flame a little bit. See if I can't get it to do what I want, which is turn from the middle as much as from the ends. And now that it's started to spin, you can see that defining blue line as the edge of the ribbon. And I just want to try to keep those even at defining edge. And spin it until it looks the way I would like. 3 or 4 turns so that you can see what's going on inside. So I'm done spinning, so I detached one of the handles. Now let's sphere up that free side. Got pretty crazy shaped there, because I'm brushing it. Alright, so I'm doing my persuading in a slightly larger bowl, hemisphere, than the marble's diameter, and then I'm going to a smaller sphere, just using the rim and changing the axis of rotation to get it spherical. And we did it. Alright, so, pretty spherical. Now I'm going to see if it's spherical enough to run through the cherry wood marble molds. And heat it and let all the ripples come out of it. I have light bulbs above me, and so I can see the reflection of the light bulbs in the surface of the glass. And if you see they're not wavering, then your glass is smooth. If they're wavering, it shows you just right where the ripples are in the surface of the glass. And so you don't always have to have it in the heat on a torch. You can back off of the heat and slow down and see what happens. Relax. You should be relaxed. Easy to go too fast and have everything fall off onto your bench because you went too fast, too far, too hot. Try to move it too much at a time. Got some nice spin in there. And looks cool too. Now I'm going to put it through the cherry wood molds. Alright, now my last attachment point. It might not be my last, but hopefully it will be my last. So let's get that cold seal glass weirdness off the tip of that fuzzy rod. And then let's reshape it to a pencil point. Let's heat up the surface of the marble so it's the right temperature, and we'll heat the tip so it's even hotter. Then we'll touch them together. And I sort of missed off axis a little bit, so I could start over, but I think, yeah, I will start over. You know what? That grab is pretty good. All right, I've adjusted my thinking. That's going to be too strong of a joint now because I actually fully fused them together by heating it up. But that is okay. Not an exact science. And it's great to get the feel of both sides of that equation. If you don't get it right and it's too cold, it's going to fall off. If you get it too hot, it won't tap off as easily. But both of those things are okay. I'm just pushing this in a little bit. So if you let a surface design draw in, it can get fuzzy on the edges. If you push it in, too hard, you're going to distort the design. So there's a happy medium there, and getting it hot, letting it start to pull in, push it in a little bit. You don't have to do it all at once. This just has a really cool swirl at the end that I'd like to preserve. And so if it takes an extra minute or two to not mess up my design, I will not mess up my design. Alright, it's pushed in. I'm near spherical, so the marble mold will take it from here. Let's do a little persuasion. The glass got pretty hot, so it wants to go spherical with the right touch. We got it very close. Now let's heat it up. I think we're going to call this one done. We're coming up on an hour here, so we're really moving this marble along fast. Good thing I kept it a little smaller. I've got some surface ripples in there. Which I'd like to get rid of. Well, I think our ribbon color came out pretty nice. You can see the opaque middle one. And then the colors you can't see right now, those will resolve when it reaches room temperature. At high temperature, we won't be able to see those colors. And we might not be able to see some of those colors because this base glass is not clear. It is mostly 95% transparent. Alright, so I've tapped off my last rod. The cold joint on there was actually pretty good. I was mentally overreacting a little bit. The separation line was really clean. I'm just polishing that last mark off. Grab my marble tweezers, and heat those up until they're orange. And then let them go to black so they don't stick to the marble. And I like to just wiggle it in there a little bit rather than just clamping down on it. And then off to the annealer. Oops. All right. So, thanks for watching. Not sure if next week I'll still have the furnace going. If I do, I'll probably be doing glass pressings, which is picking up gathers out of the furnace and pressing them into various graphite molds. I've got several projects that I'm working on for that. There's some eyes for another collaboration project, and then just marble stands, and trying to get through all the stained glass that I had, thousands of pounds from when I had a stained glass supply shop. That glass, it's pretty, and I want to melt it, and damn it, I'm melting it into some marble stands. So we might just watch that. We'll see. We'll figure something out. Anyway, thanks for watching, and if there were any questions, I'll read back after this and answer them for you this evening. All right, see ya.